Good morning. We are now live on Facebook and LinkedIn for the South Florida Tech Podcast, a regular show. We bring you the awesome, innovative people building our South Florida tech community. Each week, we'll introduce you to one of the Sunshine State's top tech leaders, learn more about who they are, what they do, and have some fun conversation along the way. Our podcast is, of course, presented by Tech Hub South Florida, a nonprofit dedicated to building South Florida into a tech hub, and in partnership with our lovely friends at Brainstation. We also have our co-host Joanna Mikkola here today.
Hey guys, great to be here. As Joe said, it's the Joe and Joe show. Glad to be representing Brainstation. I'm the VP and General Manager for the Florida market. Super excited about all the work we're doing here together in South Florida for technology.
And of course, I'm your host, Joe Russo, President and CEO of Tech Hub South Florida. I want to also give a shout out to our sponsors over at Emerge Americas. They just announced they're going to be bringing back the in-person event in 2022. So kudos to them for putting all of that together. I know it's been a really tough year for in-person events, but if you want to know really what the point is about it, I mean, each year Miami Beach, they've hosted organizations from over 40 countries and had 250 speakers from around the world. They're building our tech hub here in South Florida through this really cornerstone event for our community. So thank you to Felice, Melissa, and all of the great people over there. And with that, I want to get to our really special guest today. His name is Bobby George. He's the Senior Vice President and Digital Officer at Carrier, a world leader in heating, air conditioning, and refrigeration solutions, a Fortune 500 company based right here in South Florida. Before starting this role, Bobby was the Senior Vice President and CIO for Manufacturing, Engineering, and Services at GE, just a little company you might have seen in everyday life for your entire life. Bobby also holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the National Institute of Technology. You'll have to correct me on this. Werlicka, and an MBA from the International Management Institute. But Bobby, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us and sharing a little bit about what the awesome work is that you do with Carrier.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
So if you want to kick us off and give us the elevator speech on who is Bobby and what do you do with Carrier?
Wait. I'll start with Carrier. I lead digital for Carrier. I have responsibility for all things digital, whether it's improving our internal productivity using digital tools and capabilities, growing our business and engaging with our customers using digital touch points, and releasing new products and services that has a digital component, along with our well-renowned physical products in the world. That's my responsibility overall. I have been pretty much associated with tech my entire life. Graduating post chemical engineering, I started my career in consulting with Andersen Consulting. It was about 4 years of consulting with Andersen and Cambridge Technology Partners. I spent about 11 years at GE, various roles, various different organizations, manufacturing, financial services, etc. And in between my GE stints, I boomerang back into GE. But in between that, I spent about 8 years with a company called St. Jude Medical as a CIO, and then subsequently leading their services business, a medical devices manufacturer that got acquired by Abbott later on. And now I've been with Carrier for about 3 years and thoroughly enjoying it.
I love it. And I know we were talking before, you're somewhat new, very familiar. You've been working in Florida, but you've made a return. How has that transition been? How is it to be back in Florida?
It's great. I've been here for about 2.5 years now with Carrier. I call myself sort of bi-coastal, so I've got a feet in California in the Bay Area and a feet here in Florida. So I shuttle back and forth, from one tech hub to an aspiring tech hub, right? So it's been a fantastic transition moving from and seeing Florida grow as a tech hub. I mean, all the work you guys do and all the companies and the entrepreneurship that is emerging out of the South Florida area has been fascinating to watch.
Yeah, super interesting and great to see that Florida has also attracted some Bay Area folks, particularly in recent months, which has been interesting. But turning back to Carrier a little bit, would love to hear how you are leveraging, digital strategies, how you're using data to do all that you do, whether it's customer satisfaction to what you're doing with technology. It'd be great to hear a little bit more about what you're doing there. And also I see carrier.io. Love the .io. If you could tell us a little bit about that as well, would be great.
Absolutely. So, when I think about technology and how we apply technology to a company like Carrier, it's kind of multifold, right? So the first thing first, we are a very large manufacturer, as Joe said. We're about 19 plus $billion company. And we have manufacturing facilities across the world, about 49 manufacturing facilities. We participate in very important parts of the economy, whether it's the building space with building tech. You're probably all your viewers and listeners are familiar with the HVAC systems we manufacture, and hopefully you buy them. And like Carrier products that we sell. We also have a business called Fire and Security, which has a collection of brands, whether it is life safety, access control, protection for buildings, and even for the residences, right? So we have a brand called Kida, which have home smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors that you're probably familiar with in your homes. And then finally, we have the refrigeration business, where we are essentially responsible for the entire cold chain in most cases, whether it is transport refrigeration, container refrigeration, shelving refrigeration. There is a whole bunch of things, including transportation, secure transportation of medication, vaccines, food, in terms of temperature monitoring capabilities. So we've got a whole bunch of different businesses, and we participate globally in a lot of these businesses as well. The opportunity for tech to enable our enterprise to be more efficient through digitization, right? So how do we manufacture better? How do we create supply chain capabilities better? How do we manage our entire process from demand to fulfillment through the flow of data seamlessly through the enterprise? Because being in a large organization, multiple manufacturing facilities, how do you get the data to flow? How do you collect this data, and how do we organize that effectively is kind of one big thing. The second aspect of how we use technology is enabling and empowering our workforce. So having the right kind of productivity tools for people to be able to collaborate, especially relevant during the pandemic, where, I call it the biggest beta test on mankind, where on March 13th last year, we said everybody can go home and we'll figure out how we can work and get some work done. And fortunately for us, we've been one of those industries where, we've really seen the pandemic as an accelerator for our products and the demand for our products. And, most of it sort of caught us by surprise, essentially, because people are working increasingly from home. Replacements of their air conditioners, home improvement activities have resulted in enormous demand for our products. And then we chanced upon this whole thing around distribution, safe distribution of vaccine and medication, where we play a very important role in the transport of those things, right? The refrigerator. How do we get all of that? And how do we make our employees productive during this time by rolling out the right kind of tools to be able to access and work collaboratively? That's kind of the second part, I would say, of how technology enables our organization. And then third thing is e-commerce, and engaging with our customers, various different channels of engagement with our customers in a pretty significant way is some of the other things that we have done. And we've used this opportunity to launch about 11 different platforms across the organization for e-commerce. And today we generate about $1.2 billion in revenue just through e-commerce channels, because people cannot go out and buy stuff. So people have been ordering online, and that has been an enormous growth area for the business. But what I'm really excited about is, combining software capabilities, and that's where Carrier.io figures, which is our internal platform for innovation that's built on AWS. And what we've done is created a bunch of services on top that are common services that accelerates our ability to launch new products, connect our equipment, collect the data from our equipment, so that we can understand how to service them better. We can be proactive about repairing them. We can be proactive about eliminating unplanned downtime associated with our equipment, and generate new service models. monetizing data and so on. So I would anchor it on sort of two areas of importance and significance for all of us. One is what we call the healthy, safe, and sustainable buildings, right? So how do we bring, typically a building has multiple different technologies, multiple different systems in play, and how do we bring all of those systems and the data across those systems together to orchestrate a smart building ecosystem, whether it is to create a healthy environment inside the building or a sustainable building by itself. And that's kind of one area where we are focusing a ton of new capabilities around. And the other area is same thing, healthy, safe, and sustainable cold chain. How do we connect the various nodes of the cold chain, whether it is from the time a produce is harvested to the time it reaches the supermarket shelves, right? The container transport and the truck trailer transport. And how do we maintain the integrity of that transport and the integrity of the temperature? That we call that the connected cold chain capability. So those are some of the areas where we are introducing new products and new capabilities and services, leveraging Carrier IO as a platform to do that. And it's been a pretty fascinating ride.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about, everything that goes into bridging physical and digital ecosystems, because there's external there's carriers ecosystems, and then there's external ecosystems, and there's this whole digital world that's just like ballooning. There's like the capabilities are growing by the day. So it's really interesting stuff.
You did mention one thing, Bobby, and that's that Carrier also has a piece in making sure the all the vaccines for COVID-19 are able to get from A to B in a safe, effective fashion. I mean, obviously they need to be refrigerated. Could you share more about what that process is, and as much as you can share, I guess, just for just for our edification and learning here, because I know it is one heck of a logistical process.
Yeah, no, so the first thing first, right? So there is the cold transport of vaccines. So you need containers that stay cold and remain cold. You need shelving that stay cold and remain cold. But traditionally, when you look at vaccine distribution or medicines distribution that needs cold transport, the failures happen at the handoff points. So when it doesn't happen usually in a truck that is refrigerated. It happens usually when it comes off of a truck into a refrigerated warehouse where there is a temperature incursion, somebody left a door open or something, and the whole batch goes bad. So what we have is this capability that is a sensor, a temperature sensor, and a location sensor that's on each box that transports the vaccines, that then essentially transmits that data on a continuous stream back up to the cloud that gives us integrity and visibility end to end from the point of origin where the manufacturers leave the facility to the time it is actually ending up in, whether it's a point of care solution or a pharmacy or any one of those endpoint locations, right? We have end-to-end visibility into how the vaccine is transported and what temperature it is maintained. We have a technology that does that. And that's been sort of a big contribution to how we've been able to participate in this logistical process that we've all been engaged in the last 3 to 4 months since the vaccines have been approved. So it's continuously evolving, and I think there are certain things that we know we've learned from the process that we'll continue to improve. For example, real-time monitoring capabilities, and how can we make sure we can do real-time monitoring at even a much smaller form factor level, even going all the way down to sort of an individual batch, right? So that gives you not just integrity on transport temperatures, but also around the efficacy and the integrity of the medicine itself, so that there is no fakes or other processes that are involved in the process, so that people have more confidence in the whole distribution and really taking and accepting vaccines.
Another thing you did mention, I believe, is Carrier has adopted AWS and put a lot of implementation into that over I'm assuming not just past year, but several years now. And it's been an integral part of your digital transformation. Can you go into that process of adopting a major cloud provider company wide, and at the same time also essentially building a new Fortune 500 company because of the split from United Technologies. There's a lot of moving pieces, I imagine.
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with the second part first, which was kind of the impetus for us to go with the AWS partnership, right? So, about so we spun off as an independent company first week of April last year, and we were staring right into the pandemic, right? We were that was not the ideal time to spin off as an independent company, if you ask me. And a lot of what I'd call the traditional IT and digital services for Carrier was offered to us through our parent company, United Technologies. So they had the infrastructure capabilities, they had the application software capabilities that managed our corporate systems. So there was a lot of cybersecurity capabilities, et cetera, was offered to us through United Technologies. Carrier didn't have independent capabilities at that time. So the challenge for us and our team was to stand up all of these capabilities for a newly independent company that's got a global presence. So my entire team went to work on the first week of April, setting that process up. We still have what we call transitional services agreements with UTC that extended for about 12 months that still provided us access to those services. But we had that 12-month period to really establish our own sort of backbone and the infrastructure itself. And as a team, we got together and said, this is an opportunity for us to truly transform from what I call a legacy-ish infrastructure to more of a modern architecture and adopting really modern capabilities that drive agility and speed for the organization, right? So, and we leaned into it as a team in a pretty significant way, where we said, we're going to adopt a cloud first mentality, right? For everything that we're going to do software as a service, multi-tenant cloud, minimum customization, and best of breed in many cases as we think about technology adoption itself. We stayed away from sort of this legacy software world and looked at ways in which we can accelerate our organization's ability to transform. I'd say it has not been without disruption, right? So especially the amount of change that we put the organization through for the last 12 months or so, it has been a lot. And it is thanks to a lot of people working really, really hard on all of these projects to establish that backbone. And a funny story, side story, right? I went and talked to my leadership team and our CEO, and I said, Dave Gitlin, who's our CEO, I said, we've got two options here. One is we have an option to cut and paste what we had in the past. That would be a relatively simpler transition. We could do it fast. Or we could use this as a transformational moment where we adopt the latest and greatest. It's going to be a little disruptive, but we're going to get after it, right? And Dave, without batting an eyelid, said, we're going to go the disruptive route and we're going to transform, and we're going to use this opportunity to transform, which was great. And so I had the support of my peers and the leadership team to go through and manage through all the noise that came out of the disruption. But I can sit here 12 months since, and we just hit on March 30th, our 12-month timeframe, and we have successfully exited all the transitional services, and we are now set up as an independent company, and we're much better for it. So as we were going through this process, we already had partnerships with Microsoft. Azure was one of the cloud environments that we had existing. I was very, very keen on working with a partner who can co-innovate with us and innovate at a rate of speed that we were looking to go as an organization, especially as we are thinking about sort of customer-facing technologies and IoT connectivity and data and analytics, which informed our choice of AWS as a cloud partner. And that partnership has been fantastic. It's been great working with Andy Jassy and the team in AWS. And they've been, not just partners as a technology provider, but also co-innovating with us in the cold chain space that we talked about earlier, and bringing forth a platform that we are calling our Links platform. So the cold chain platform for Carrier is called the Links platform, where we are trying to establish not just ourselves, but an ecosystem of players, because ultimately it is not just us that are this. end-to-end chain, there are other players that we would like to bring into the ecosystem. So AWS, with their capabilities, their constant drive for innovation, the agility in building products, and like us, they are looking to continuously improve their services and charging their customers less for those services, which I like. Which has been very good for us as we continue to scale and adopt some of these services as well. So it's worked well for us so far, and we consider them a very, very strong partner for us, and we feel that it's unleashed within our organization sort of this culture of innovation and experimentation, with a lot of builders adopting products and services AWS and building on top of that. Because in my opinion, most of the stuff that is out there that you can think of has already been invented. How do you bring that quickly into an ecosystem, string that together to drive advances for carrier is kind of my objective here.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I mean, cultivating a culture of innovation, like you just said, is really an interesting challenge, particularly for such established larger companies where,
Yep.
There might have been a way of doing things in a certain culture. And now it's not just, another talk that happens a lot in all tech ecosystems is reskilling or skilling up teams. So there's also this culture element, which we haven't talked too much about on the podcast, but is a really important element, which is making sure that everyone, not just the technology team, is thinking in innovative ways. So that's really interesting. Switching gears a little bit to talk about yourself. I know you mentioned when we started the podcast that, you've had an awesome career journey. You boomeranged, you were at GE for a while, you left for 8 years, you came back, now you're at Carrier. I'm curious, have there been certain pivots that you've had to make as you have built your career? What's that career journey been like for you?
Yeah, so
to leave a big
yeah.
company like GE where you've spent so much time, now you're leading the team at Carrier. I'm curious just to hear about how that journey has been for you and how much of it has been organic versus planned.
It's always been organic, right? So I've been attracted to sort of a challenge. I enjoy a challenge of building a team and also being part of an organization that's got a mission and a purpose larger than itself. And so that's kind of been sort of what I'd say the anchors of my choices in terms of career. So I would say I've just loved tech from the early stages of my career, and I've really enjoyed the business of business, right? So whether it's creating new business models or introducing new stuff. And fortunately for me, all my jobs across various puts and takes within my career have been about bringing those two, bridging tech and doing the business of business and enabling organizations to achieve great things. And I'm fortunate to say in the process, I've also been able to build some phenomenal teams, whether it is in GE, where we were establishing GE Digital as a new organization within an industrial behemoth in Silicon Valley, where we hired a ton of non-traditional GE people to come work on big, large, hairy problems in GE, and now at Carrier, right? So Carrier had traditionally been a company that was very known for our physical products, and how do we bring in digital capabilities onto our physical product to continue to accelerate our journey as a company and enable the next generation of growth. And I think when I talk about purpose, I think whether it is GE or whether it is St. Jude Medical or whether it is Carrier, what attracted me to Carrier was the purpose of building products and services that make the world a better place. It is those ecosystems that I talked about where we play and others. It's just been fascinating for me to watch that transition and our ability to influence it in our own small way.
Love that. That's awesome.
Awesome. And Bobby, really want to bring it down to you and, being a Floridian now for a moment. Have you really had a chance to explore Florida or find anything that has been, kind of your bread and butter as far as what to do here? We talked about running, jogging earlier. What do you like to do on the weekends? What do you like to do to get out of the office?
I love the ocean and the beach. I think, like I live downtown West Palm when I'm here, and it's great to just walk down, uh, cross the bridge, and go over to the ocean and just spend time there. I enjoy it, and the climate here is nothing to complain about. The weather is fantastic, and just spending time outdoors. That's been really my thing. I'm still involved in some community activities back in California. I've not been so engaged here, but looking forward to getting more engaged in some of those activities as well. Both as part of the organization, Carrier participates in the community in a pretty significant way, and then even outside of the organizational commitments.
That's awesome. Love that. Well, we're almost up for time here, but before we end, we always love to do a little bit of rapid fire to get to know you even better. I'll start off with the first question, which is, what is the book currently on your nightstand? So what are you reading right now?
Yeah, so it's kind of a morbid topic, but the title of the book, I think, is called "This Is How They Say the World Ends." It is by this New York Times author, Nicole Pertroth, and she talks about cybersecurity and the challenges around cybersecurity, and in a fun sort of end of the world kind of way, which has been interesting, especially as we watch all these big cyber events take place, and people talk about cybersecurity as the next frontier of how civilizations clash, and it's been a fascinating read. So that's been the book on my bookshelf.
Love it. What is your most productive time of day?
It's usually morning. So I try to wake up around 5 a.m. in the morning, try to get out, listen to a podcast while I go for a run, and answer emails and take some calls with folks in Asia Pacific. So I find that period between 5 and 8 before I show up at the office as being the most productive time, because usually the day tends to run a lot longer these days, especially with the Zoom meetings. I'm sure everybody has the same. You're back to back to back in meetings, and you really don't get any downtime to have a productive think time. If you
Absolutely. You got to schedule it in. So you're waking up at 5. What time do you go to bed?
usually 10:30 or so.
Love it. And you did also mention that you like to listen to some podcasts. Do you have a favorite that you would recommend?
I love the Anderson Horowitz podcast. It's called A16Z, and it is they tend to have a longer format podcast where they bring speakers on a particular topic and they do a really good deep dive on that. So the latest I heard was on NFTs, and I'm sure NFT and Bitcoin and all of that is kind of current in terms of what people are talking about. But it's been really, I enjoy it because of the deep dive part of that podcast, and they really go deep into the topic.
That's great. Got to check that out. And then finally, is there a motto or a mantra or a quote that you live by or you come back to for inspiration time and time again?
There are two things, right? Always be learning is kind of one, because you can be successful because things are changing so rapidly unless you're willing to learn and have an open mind about changing your beliefs. And then what I take back also is experience for me is an opportunity to learn from your mistakes. So and I've made a ton, God knows, and the ability to be able to learn from them and try not to repeat them has kind of been my other important thing. So those are two things that I keep close and try to abide by, completing the feedback loop.
Love it. That's great. Thank you for sharing.
And now that I know that you live in downtown, I'm gonna have to hit you up for chess and coffee.
Joe's gonna come knock on your door.
Excellent.
I've been doing this chess and coffee on Saturdays now. It keeps my mind going on the weekends pretty good. But that said, last question, very simple, but what bit of advice do you have for any aspiring technology leaders here in South Florida that could be listening to the podcast?
Yeah, no, I think the most important thing is find a problem that you want to solve, right? And I'm I don't have enough hubris to think that technology can solve all problems, but I think technology can solve a lot of problems that we see around us. And be passionate about the problem, find a problem you want to solve. The rest of it comes, as long as you are passionate and you know what you're doing, trying to work towards.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bobby, for spending some time here with us. And if you're tuning in and you want to learn more about what we do, you can go to techhubsouthflorida.org. You can learn more about the great companies like Carrier that are part of our organization and part of our South Florida tech community here. And thank you again, Bobby, for taking some time out of your busy morning to join us and have a conversation.
Yeah, Joe and Joe, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation and the chat and looking forward to more. Thanks.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Have a good rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.